continue tonight journey about the seven nafs, which is just a study in the stages of the development of human soul. We had already 3 satsangs, and we just read the framework for understanding of the whole vision of the Sufi tradition and the value that they give to these transformative tools, which are the names of the divine, and how these qualities of the soul can be sublimated, transformed. For the beginning, just a short summary, since some time passed, last satsang. According to the Sufi tradition, apart from this quantitative universe, is a universe of qualities, in the sense of a universe in which beauty, love, purity are present. And these qualities can be perceived not just in an intellectual way or rational or empirical way, but is essentially the heart that can perceive such divine qualities. So the heart, of course, not the physical heart, but the soul, our soul, is like an organ of perception of this qualitative universe. And every quality that a human being recognizes in the world is actually a reflection of an inner understanding or revelation. So it's like nature and the human heart are 2 mirrors reflecting each other. We see beauty in the world, but it's because of the beauty of the heart. And ultimately, all is related to the supreme source with consciousness. So consciousness is primordial, or God, as the Sufi tradition would say. Also, the heart is a holistic organ of reflection. So in the heart, in our soul, we contain the whole universe, the complete sampling of the universe of qualities happens in the heart. So you see there is a very deep connection between the Hridaya Yoga and the Sufi path, because in the Sufi tradition, the heart has a central role. If, for example, in yoga we speak about Kundalini awakening and stages of development related to the chakras, in Sufism, all the inner development happens mostly in the heart. So the heart is the place of the spiritual transformation. The heart is seen as a seat of the divine life. That's why the remembrance or the prayer happens in the heart. So by this awareness of the heart there, we can feel God's presence. As hadith saying of the prophet is, heaven and earth do not contain me, but I'm contained in the heart of my devotee. So it's that seat of infinity. Then the heart is seen as a mirror that reflects the truth. That's why the mirror, in the old times, the mirror was like brass or metal, which needed to be polished constantly. So then this idea of polishing the mirror of the heart, that means of bringing the awareness and reconnecting the heart with that higher reality, with God. And then we speak about the call. Call means heart, spiritual heart transformations, which is about the transformation and purification of the heart as central topic in Sufism. So cleansing the heart from all these lower tendencies like hypocrisy, arrogance, pride, and so on, and bringing through this honoring of the noble, direct qualities of the heart to expand our hima, as the Sufi tradition would name it. This hima, it's a creative power of the heart bringing love, purity, inspiration. It's interesting that Naqshbandi Sufi, it's an Indian branch of Sufism. They consider themselves older even than Islam. They said that it's just a group of tradition of people who are following prophets, and that in history goes even earlier. And these people are named Brotherhood of Purity. They are Sufi, Golden Sufi tradition of India, and their path is also named Yoga of the Heart. At that time, when we read Hridaya Yoga, we didn't know that they name also in this way, but Naqshbandi tradition also sometimes names themselves the Yoga of the Heart. Crucial is this whole domain of the names of the divine, which are basically these divine qualities which the heart can reflect, all these pure, noble qualities. We don't need to see them in the context of Islam or not even in a religious context. It's just divine, infinite compassion, purity, majesty, and so on. So tonight we are going to speak about the first nafs. We started last time, but just briefly mentioning about some characteristics of nafs al-amara, or the tyrannical self, the commanding self or ego. And just reminding you, there are 7 such stages, starting from the lower one, the tyrannical self, then regretful self, and then going till the pure self. 7 such stages of purification. They are not just levels of human consciousness. They should be seen mostly as tendencies, and in our soul still there can be maybe a little bit this tyrannical self, and also and still parts of others as well, other such tendencies, and still we can. And it's interesting to see, for example, that regretful self, the second one, was very prominent in a stage of Saint Augustine. How Saint Augustine turned himself from just being indulged in pleasure and having a philosophy like this to authentic spirituality, but he passed through such a stage of regretful self. So it's not necessarily that if we are on a spiritual path, we should look only to the higher aspects. These lower dimensions should be acknowledged, and it's good to pass to an acknowledgement of them. So etymologically, amara means habitually or repeatedly command, and it is translated as commanding nafs or depraved tyrannical nafs, not in the sense that this nafs will command, that the ego is the one who commands, or we are in command, or the person is tyrannical in herself, but rather that this tendency, this tyrannic tendency, is making the person a slave. So the person may appear to be very tyrannic to others. For example, Caligula or Nero are examples of such nafs al-amara. But actually, if we look deeper, they are just commanded by these vain desires of the world, attaching to selfishness, ignorance, avidya, as in yoga we name it. And we also describe briefly these characteristics: arrogance, ambition, ignorance, backbiting, lying, enmity, bitterness, cruelty, restlessness. Rumi, for example, describes it in Matnavi or Masnavi. Rumi gives a lot of attention to the nafs, especially those first nafs, and the way in which he describes is very much as a hell of Manipura, realm in which is just a search for power. I mean, it can be power in trying to manipulate, to control others, not caring about human qualities. So again, being commanded by this thirst for power, and then slowly ignoring the noble qualities of a human being or moral, ethical principles. So it can be this aggrandizement or degradation when, for example, out of dependence, people would do anything. But that is not humbleness. It's just a dependence on that kind of addiction or whatever. So Rumi very much described this as a hell of this, we can say in yoga, of Manipura chakra. Addiction to worldly pleasures, uncontrolled desires, appetites, instinctual habits, lack of integrity, without caring about our impact on others, or that impact on others, lack of empathy. It's a closeness of the heart. It's not that openness to the ineffable, and therefore denying God. In Christianity, there are such 7 deadly sins, which are basically ways in which the heart closes. And you see, it's a Christian representation of how the heart, basically the soul of human being, is taken by these 7 tendencies associated with some animals: toad, avarice; snake, envy; lion, wrath; snail, sloth; thief, gluttony; goat, lust; peacock, pride. Now, in order to understand even better the situation of such a dimension of our soul, of this Nafs Salamara, we will use the framework of Assagioli. Assagioli was Italian psychologist who put the basis of psychosynthesis, which is a way of integrating psychology and bringing some elements of spirituality. Definitely he was inspired by the yoga tradition and the spiritual dimensions of yoga. And we are going to speak about this diagram because each of these levels, each of these knobs can be put in this diagram. So according to him, it's in the middle of this egg-like domain of our being is the conscious self. That is, we can say the ego, the individuality. Then it's a field of consciousness. This is our field of consciousness, which is, of course, more restricted for a limited human being. It will increase when the nafs will become closer to that perfection. And then we have a collective unconscious all around. Then it's a middle unconscious. Middle unconscious is something that we can access quite easily. Usually we are not aware of it, like, for example, the name of the mother of your friend in childhood. No? You remember your childhood, and then what's the name of his mother, maybe, or her mother. Maybe it's harder to remember immediately, but still it's possible, usually. So this would be the middle unconscious. Then we have the lower unconscious, which of course is the one related to unconscious impulses, lower desires. And then we have higher unconscious, that openness to spiritual aspects. It is still not accessible. Hopefully in time we come to access more and more this light of consciousness, more and more refinement will happen, and thus we will be able to have inspiration, divine insights, and such spiritual transformations. And then the higher self, or we can compare it with the pure, with this aham vritti, with a pure I, which then expands in the ultimate reality. Just to make even more clear what Roberto Assagioli said in this journey, so he compares with the, or refers to the alchemical stages. We have 3 alchemical stages. It is first nigredo, know yourself, which means accessing the unconscious. That is that phase of accessing the subconscious tendency, or acknowledging our limitations and the causes of our reactions related to our wounds and so on. So this would be the lower unconscious, the nigredo, the initial phase in alchemy. Then comes albedo, which is connected with the middle unconscious, when we manage to master ourselves more, and it's a phase of purification. And in the end is rubedo, nigredo, albedo, rubedo. So the work at black, of white, and red. So stages of alchemical transformation. No, rubedo, transform yourself, is this way of accessing divine realms. And also Roberto Assagioli compares all this journey with the journey which the Divine Comedy of Dante was described, or was represented. Now, looking at this direct Pyrrhonic nafs, now we can see what is happening. Here, the lower unconscious comes with a lot of tendencies, and we are influenced by this lower unconscious, while the higher unconscious is basically inaccessible. It seems that there is such a big barrier that we cannot access deeper dimensions of the soul and that connection with that perfection of our being. Our field of awareness usually is contracted, it's very much ego-centered. So now we are going to speak about the characteristics of this tyrannical self, and then we are going to speak about the way in which these are echoing in the lifestyle, in relationships, in decision making, in the general well-being of a human being. And then we will start speaking about remedies, general remedies for such a situation, for such a condition, and then specific remedies for each of these tendencies that we may have or acknowledge that exist there. So, in general, its Nafs Salamara is egocentric, is always about himself, very arrogant, thinking himself as the center of the universe. Basically, this tends to be sometimes maintained even in spirituality. Actually, if you'll have time, we will also look at how this Nafs Salamara refers or reflects in the spiritual journey, and also in a Sangha, how a Sangha touched by such Nafs Salamara would react. So, arrogance. Then it's the dominance of lower desires. It's impulsive nature, driven to basic desires, instincts, passions, and because of this, it's like a blindness. We ignore what would be wrong or right, the consequences, not so much. It's just about that gratification, quick gratification. Because of this, there is an indulgence in immoralities, careless about the repercussions of its actions, and prone to commit sins. You see, here we said he is or it, we refer to just as a component of the soul. Later on, maybe we'll refer to how, maybe in a more didactical way, how we can deal in such situations. But remember, it's not, by speaking about this, is not about just thinking about only bad things. It's about learning to witness and acknowledge any such possible limitations that may exist in our soul, and they should seen with compassion. So I will invite you during the whole satsang to keep this background of compassion. Sometimes in spirituality, especially, people tend to avoid speaking about what seems to be negative or lower tendencies, because they consider that in this way they would avoid any resonance with that. It's just an avoidance. It's not really full acknowledgement. Actually, the next stage, the regretful nafs, we are going to speak, definitely not tonight, about regretful nafs. That is exactly about the stage in which we start acknowledging, and then the regret comes. So we cannot really speak about a real transformation unless we acknowledge all this, and there is also a stage of regret. So the Sufi tradition speaks about still a gradual passing through these stages. It's not that we can jump from the first level of the nafs till the last one without acknowledging or passing through all the others. So even though, yes, regretful nafs is just still a limiting tendency, it's an important step, and we need to pass through it. And then, of course, there are ways of dealing with this. Either we go in skepticism and we are just lost in that, or we use in a wise way to sublimate the energy going further. In a way, we can say that this Nafs Alamara is quite linear in his attitudes. It may seem paradoxical what I'm saying, because on the one hand, it's of course a lot of fluctuations because of moods and so on. But on the other hand, you pretty much know what such person would come. Here is not yet the stage in which he'll say to you, well, I decided not to smoke anymore, or not to be addicted anymore. There, you know, that person likes drinking, and in connection with that, you know that everything that is around that will happen. So they are predictable. They are quite predictable. When people start regretting, then sometimes they would want to drop that, but still those tendencies are so powerful that they cannot yet, but still regret, still try, and so on. But here, the people are quite predictable in this sense. So, further characteristics. It's an ignorance of spiritual realities. It's like a blockage of the heart, ignoring a spiritual potential, not relying on more spiritual or subtle dimensions, not being able to anchor in the spiritual heart. That's why it's just about worldly matters. It's all that such soul will see. With this comes the forgetfulness of God, not just in a religious self, but is simply an ignorance of that spiritual dimension of existence, with all that intuition of beauty, of sacredness, of wonderment. On the other hand, we see that person very rebellious and resistant to guidance. I'm saying on the other hand because he would not be rebellious when somebody would ask him, come to drink or come to do this, let's indulge in that pleasure. They would not say no or oppose such an invitation. But whenever it's about a spiritual guidance, they would finally or suddenly realize that they don't want that, or they feel wounded or affected if somebody would take their will or of doing what they want, which is actually being possessed, we can say, by this nafs amara. Because of this, also there is a lack of remorse and guilt. Later on, it will come this, but at this stage, people tend to justify or rationalize what they will find reasons for all that is wrong. They will find different reasons with not really being shaken, an awakening of consciousness. No, they would continue to do whatever, finding reasons for whatever they are doing. Still, at a certain point, the inner conflict will come. All these tendencies create a sense of suffering in the end. And even when there are moments of clarity, they are quickly taken by such moments of ignorance. Looking for short-term gratification is one of the main characteristics as well. Not concerned to other deeper aspects of life. And that's why being caught in all those limited views, not having a wider perspective. In Masnavi, Rumi has a story about the hukwu, describing this condition of the nafs. Is like the hukwu who watches, so the bird watches how the hunter makes the snare, so makes the trap. And so she saw, the hukwu sees the trap while the hunter is doing it. But then she just still goes to be caught there, somehow forgetting about the danger or that is a trap there. So ignoring that, it's just lured, it's just fascinated by that seed that would attract, or that insect that would attract her, and then forgetting about the danger that is involved in that she would be ensnared there. And this shows this incapacity to see the connection between cause and effect. Of course, we are in that condition because we are simply having those tendencies, or we are lost in those tendencies like this. So that lack of perspective, of causality, how we came in such a condition, avoid that thing that is poisonous for us, that is something that it's not very clear for Nafs Alamara. Now, I'm going to speak about this reflected in different domains of our existence. So, in our daily life, the tyrannical self is characterized by impulsiveness and operating, therefore, in whims, moods, and desires. It's overindulgence in food, sex, or impulsive spending, whatever. Even that, as I said, is predictable. We may expect that the person will do this, and the person will do indeed this. Short-term gratification, as I said, in this case, the daily life, shopping a lot, watching shows, social media a lot. Then, of course, unhealthy substances, unhealthy habits, which are all forms of escapism, of avoiding being with ourselves or self-awareness. There is also, for such a person in daily life, it's a neglect of responsibilities. It's tending to procrastinate things that need to be done, or postponing or ignoring things, important things, which lead to disorder, chaos in the job, at home, in general. So it's a lack of self-discipline and self-control, always comfort, tasks that would require effort or focus will be avoided. So we can recognize such a tendency maybe. Then it's also regarding relationships. So how this happens in a relationship with the friends or with a partner, then it's always a self-centric behavior. It's about me and ego. It's about arrogance and what's in for me, thinking always about the ego and about his or her advantages. So trying just to look at the benefits, not contributing or not having that quality of generosity. Also, impatience and anger are characteristics of such a person because of so many desires, because actually it's a substratum of lack. Something is missing, and because it's such going with such a sense of missing, we do want a lot of things. These desires are so powerful because of the habits. Those habits made us to be attached to those desires, basically don't fulfill really us. And because of this, we have desires. Often they are not satisfied, and this leads to frustration, and it's like a vicious circle. Again, frustration, but the background is insatisfaction. And it's important to look in our soul. If there is a lot of insatisfaction, definitely this shows that a connection with that deeper dimension of our being is not yet happening. And then, of course, we try to live in compensations. This is also related to reactivity, reacting very impulsively to conflicts, making dramas. Everything is heavy, everything is difficult in such a relationship. Things that could normally resolve in a very simple way become such a big problem or such a big issue, and because the ego needs to be fulfilled. The ego is there always. And then also unreliable behavior, in the sense that you cannot really rely on the commitments such a person would do, because always the person is not stabilized in this. So these moral values don't have real meaning for them. It's more about pleasure or more about those quick satisfactions. And of course, if that is the way in which the person lives, it's hard to hope for a commitment, a long-term commitment. And related to this, it's also creating a draining in relationship. It's exhausting. It's the way in which the soul is and then projects in the relationship as well. It's a heavy energy. Everything is heavy about it. Jealousy, attachment, You are not supposed in the relationship with such a person to look at another man or woman, because then jealousy will come, or stories will come, and fears and projections, and all these aspects are very much related to nafs amara. It's like pretty much a little bit of a hell, hoping that the relationship will continue, and thus they will be satisfied, because it's ego motivating. If that wouldn't be like this, we wouldn't grasp, or we wouldn't be so attached to the other person or to the partner. But because of this, it's so much grasping there. So that's why, as we said, we have difficulties in commitment. It's a feeling of missing out, or a desire for something better, which of course will lead to difficulties of this. Also lack of empathy. Of course, this ego-ness and centeredness in the ego, it's like a narrowing of the horizon of consciousness. It's just about me, me, me. And then my friend or my partner is like a completely alien person, in the sense that his pain is not my pain, or her difficulty is not my difficulty. In empathy, my pain or her pain is my pain. But also her joy is my joy. Here, it's not like this. And of course, manipulation is a big part of this. To feed its desires, might manipulate others, leading, of course, to distrust, instability in relationship, trying to control the other, with all the complex situations related to that. Regarding decision making, so how such a person taken by nafs amara would take decisions. Always short-sightedness, so not big perspectives, not the willingness to have a wider vision, just immediate benefits, easily swayed by external influences, so depending very much on others would say, what is the fashion, or what the boss would say, or whatever, following those old habits or tendencies, or the pressure of societal norms, or what media is saying, and following just some things, not honoring the inner moral values. And this, of course, will lead to unwise decisions. Then also avoidance. The person will start with you doing some projects, but whenever the things become complicated, they will rather leave, or they will rather abandon, and that's why they are not really reliable. And in some moments, everything may seem very well, but then, especially when things are not going well, they avoid assuming responsibility. They will not say, "Oh, this was my fault, and therefore I need to try to repair this, or to do the best to try to fix that thing." No, would rather run away, avoid, blaming others, or preferring not to, or to be bothered because others would ask him why he is like this. With this, a lot of impulsivity in decision making, with ignorance of these ethical and moral implications, and ignoring consequences of their decisions. So lack of caution, foresight, which can bring harm or unnecessary risks, simply because the people don't have that wider perspective. Now, regarding the overall well-being, Of course, such an attitude can echo at the physical, psychological, mental level, not in a very harmonious way. The physical health is just compromised because of this overindulgence, addiction, neglecting the health needs, then looking for immediate gratification can lead to obesity or substance abuse or other forms of addiction. Then there are problems with emotional health as well, because this chase of desires, still without deep fulfillment, as I said, will lead to anxiety, depression, emptiness, and it's like they don't see any other possibility. It's a lack of horizon because they don't commit to a transformation. There is not yet another option that is seen there. It's just being commanded by such lower impulses that, of course, will generate a lot of emotional turmoil. There can be some peaks, some moments of high when that thing is satisfied, very, very short such moments, followed by long moments of depression or extreme lows. It's a lack of inner transformation. We tend to remain in a kind of comfort zone. It's a comfort zone which is really painful, but the ego fears changes. And the ego fears changes, especially in this case, would prefer, even if it's very, basically, he wouldn't be satisfied, but still wouldn't want to change something related to a spiritual transformation. And because of that, because of this spiritual disconnection, people will tend to feel this emptiness, this lack of higher purposes, lack of that perspective of a universe of qualities, that beauty or sacredness in life. Regarding this tendency, how we can control, or we think that we can control this nafs of amara, but actually those tendencies tend to overtake our soul. Rumi in Masnavi has a nice story about a snake catcher. A snake catcher went in the mountains and then he found there a frozen dragon. So he took the dragon from the mountains and he was very proud of what he managed to catch. And he brought it to Baghdad to show to everybody how good he was and what he did. But because of the sun, the frozen dragon became alive and then eat that snake catcher. It's exactly about this. Some tendencies may seem to be just potential there or in a small seed, and you think that you control them, but it's like the snake catcher and the frozen dragon. It's at a certain circumstance, it can overtake us and then can bring tremendous painful consequences. Rumi also used some metaphors, similar metaphors, referring, for example, to the poppy seed, the opium related to the poppy seed. People would eat such seeds, and then a sense of ignorance, somnolence, and a sort of nostalgia would take the soul, would limit the consciousness. So these desires are like the poppy seeds, which apparently don't produce anything, but then in time create such limitation. Another story, also from Masnavi of Rumi, is about the man and the bear. A man saved a bear from a dragon. There was a dragon, and the man helped the bear, and the bear was so grateful that the bear followed the man and was very honest and dedicated to the man. The friends of the man told him, well, it's not wise to go with this strong animal with you all the time. He may hurt you. But the man ignored this advice of, we can say, of the superior reason. And he was in the presence of the bear all the time. Once, while he was sleeping, the bear was near him, watching him lovingly. And then some flies came and sit on the face of the man. The bear just took them apart, just with his gesture, but the flies came back. So, annoyed by that, he looked for a big stone and hit the flies, of course, hitting the head of the man and killing the man as well. So this is another story from Masnavi, as said Masnavi, a lot of teachings. Rumi goes a lot in teaching how we can get caught by these, animalic tendencies or lower tendencies. Of course, there is a nice animal, but it's just an allegory. It's not take it literally, but it suggests that he is lower tendencies that then can kill us or can possess us. Now we are going to speak about the suggested remedies for this, and so how to deal with such tendencies. And first we'll address like a general approach, and then specifically to each of these limitations related to Nafs Satsang. It's obviously a need to wake up. So that is very important, especially for such a person, or when such tendencies are so much present in our soul. It's hard to just invoke grace or a divine help and hope only for this, because there is not so much openness. In the beginning, there is not so much openness. That's why it is good to help such a person be confronted with the consequences of such life. There are many examples in the spirituality of people who were in a very low condition, and then with the help or with the help of others or with a spiritual awakening, things changed. And we have briefly just the story of Valmiki, the writer of Ramayana. He started as a big thief and killing people, but when Narada told him about the consequences of this and invited him to share that negative karma with his family, and he saw that the family for whom he was stealing and doing all this, family refused. He said, no, this, what you give to us, it's what we share, but your karma is your karma. It's not for us to share your negative karma. So when he realized that, he simply went into meditation, advised and initiated by Narada, repeating Ram, the name of the divine, and that transformed Valmiki, house of ants was on his body so long, so prolonged and dedicated was his meditation. Angulimala, it's another example. Buddha helped this man who was just caught in a demonic kind of vow, thinking that killing and taking or making a mala um, um, necklace with 1,000 fingers, thumbs of people he would kill, that will bring his realization. So this Angulimala caught in such a demonic obsession. Basically, Angulimala initially was a very virtuous being, but then a kind of weird guru put him on this track, hoping that he will die in trying to do this, but he managed to do till 999. And then the armies of the king were wanting to try because the villages were scared by his presence. And his mother went to announce him, to prevent him, to make him know. But he wanted to kill his mother as well, so blinded. And this was when Buddha appeared. And he wanted to kill Buddha, but Buddha seemed to move from a place to another. And in the end, he was running after Buddha, but Buddha would appear in a different place. And then he said, "You should stay. Why don't you stop?" And Buddha said, "I am stopping. You are not stopping." And with this, an initiation happens. And this man was fully transformed through embracing Buddhism and Buddhist values. What is beautiful is even the story that comes after. This man became so compassionate that he was suffering when he saw a woman having a difficult birth. So he wanted to pray or to do something in order to help that woman. And not knowing exactly what to do, he went to Buddha. And Buddha said, go to that woman and make this vow by the power of the truth that since my birth time, I never intend to do any harm consciously, any harm to any human being or to any being. May you be healed and may your child be healthy. And the man said, Angulimala said, "But I cannot say this because I did so many bad things in my life. How can I say by the virtue of the fact that I never did this?" And Buddha said, then okay, then say by the virtue of the truth that since my noble birth time, I never intend to do any harm to any sentient beings, may you be healed. So it was that birth to a spiritual life. But what Buddha emphasized was like, that was what happened before. Now you are a different being. So through that power, you can transform, you can help. This is actually in the Indian tradition, the Satya Kriya is named, the power of truthfulness. And sometimes people, they would go like this, saying or expressing the power that they developed by some moral vows or decisions through the power of the truth that I respect in. May you be healed, or may you like this and like that. This is Satya Kriya. And this man did this to the woman, to the power of this commitment. Some years passed, but for him the life after conversion to Buddhism, and from that time he was fully dedicated in non-violence. And that helped that woman. That's why Angulimala, this criminal, is now venerated as the patron of those who of the mothers who have difficult childbirth. So can you imagine what transformation? And then we have the story of Naropa, who started killing, doing basically black magic, killing a person, and then realizing the consequences, and then realizing that instead of going, or realizing that he has to go in hell, and then he did everything to attain realization in this life. And he had a lot of suffering. Tilopa put him in, his master put him in a lot of tests, but he attained realization in this life. And then we have stories in Christianity. Saint Mary of Egypt, who was a prostitute and completely denying God, and then she wanted to enter a church, and she couldn't. And then she realized that it's something that is stopping her, and she realized it was the moment of self-awareness, and then basically she dedicated her life to solitude and asceticism. So others should pray for such a soul, at least in the beginning. Practicing Tonglen is giving and receiving, taking that suffering or limitations, turning it into the light of consciousness and sending blessings and light. Also, if a person like this accepts, is this prayer of the heart in the Orthodox Christianity: Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. So acknowledging this is like a way of emphasizing the humbleness. A sinner is not just about the fact that you did bad things, but it's also pointing to that humbleness. It's like the dissolution of the ego and total surrender. Also, purification techniques in Hatha Yoga and Pranayama, Japa Yoga, Nada Yoga, mantras, also seeking advice from spiritual teachers if there is an openness for that. Then cultivating self-awareness, ideally through meditation, even in small doses, and awareness in general, developing a sense of personal responsibility, evoking the day, cultivating especially non-violence, empathy, sincerity, and humility. This non-violence, for example, I mentioned of that Naqshbandi Sufi tradition. For them, ahimsa, non-violence, is not just about not doing bad things to others or not harming yourself in a physical way, or following the tendencies of Nafs al-Amara is violence, because you harm yourself when you go in habits, they would say. If you go in habits, this means harming yourself, just preventing yourself from that freedom of yourself. So the non-violence, ahimsa, has a more refined and a more profound meaning. It's not going in habits, not going in ego patterns, even that. Then keeping the witnessing attitude, also reading spiritual texts that emphasize niyama and niyama, so the moral aspects from different traditions. So creating a sensitivity and openness to noble and uplifting values. This is also possible. Keeping this constant compassion. And then it's also the tyrannical Nafs journal, which you can do, anybody can do this. Just write whenever you were angry or arrogant or acting in a not nice way with other people, cynical, or gossiping, So all these low tendencies should be noted with accuracy in a neutral way. It's not about blaming ourselves. It's blaming in that egotistical way. It's still not uh, harmonious. It's not about reactivity to that. You acknowledge with that sense of transformation. So with a commitment to become more aware, to change, to try to change that more and more. So increase determination in a transformation. This is also an essential part of this journey or remedy. So determination, as in the Sufi tradition, they say, my nafs screams out for what he desires, but my will to be free screams louder. So it's my will to be free. It's not that, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, or it's not that this is not good for my health, or it's my will to be free. So it's an aspiration that will compensate all these aspects. We need to relate to something very powerful in our soul, to a deeper power, deeper force. Of course, the supreme reality is always there, and we need to find that. And then on that determination, yes, I have these desires, but you see how beautiful Yasmin Mogahed said, my will to be free screams louder. It's good for us to remember whenever we are caught in such things. My will to be free screams louder. And then also this openness to spiritual truth. It's like your nafs, if you do not keep it busy with truth, it will keep you busy with falsehood. So an active search for truth, a constant aspiration. There is also in the Sufi tradition a beautiful story which Sheikh said he learned from his grandfather. He said, in your soul there are two wolves. There is a good wolf and a bad wolf. And they are fighting each other. The bad wolf is the one which is just about lower desires, addictions, and making you to do a lot of bad things. The good wolf is the one which helps you to long for truth, for spiritual aspiration. It's an uplifting tendency of your soul. You know who will win, and then ask the child. The child thought, it's a fight between these two wolves. Who will win? And the old man said, the one you will feed. So the wolf you will feed, that will win. No? It's very simple and logical. We feed those desires, giving attention, believing them, being indulged in them. It's just that if we, on the contrary, we are feeding the truth, the aspiration for authenticity, the moral values. Because remember, the whole context of this satsangs are basically for this, how we, as a community, and then hopefully as an echo in the world at large, transforming all these lower tendencies in the world. We see now, and there are so many instances, and now with the wars, especially now with the war in Israel and Gaza, it's so obvious. And this is a time for us to also, you can say, work with those emotions that such situations awaken in us. Because this situation is definitely, for many, awakening a lot of strong emotions. And yes, there are strong emotions, but we should learn how to sublimate everything in compassion. To sublimate everything in compassion. Because it's not just about some who are right and some who are dead. It's just compassion for those souls who are lost in a sort of hell in all that. So look for that reaction. If we are just taken by that reaction towards a part or another, still we are drawn to similar energies, witnessing and compassion. This doesn't mean that you don't have opinions. You can have an opinion. You can say, well, this is fair, what was done there was not correct, and so on. And still, compassion. Witnessing the whole situation with compassion. And then your friend, your very good friend, may have a completely opposite perspective than you have. And you realize that that is lack of what? Of truthfulness, or it's just is blinded, but it's what is taken by what the whatever media says or whatever, and still compassion for your friend as well. Not not going and perpetuating struggles. No, this is an example of how Nafs Salamara can appear in our souls. And such, so working with that is not being just indulged in that or staying in that, oh, but I suffer and I laugh, let that pain be there. I remember somebody recently speaking about telling me about this. No, I'm working with this. And what do you mean working with this suffering? Well, I let tears come, and of course, letting tears, maybe they were not present at a certain point, is good. You acknowledge the situation, but working is not just about re-evoking or thinking again and again from that same level of consciousness. Working is exactly about opening the perspective, dropping all the barriers and walls that were created around that situation, all the habits, tendencies, all the reactions, and in that vulnerability, healing the second. Also, honoring beauty, learning to open to the beauty of the heart. This, of course, is a remedy for any stage, limited stage of the soul, but Shams Tabrizi, the good friend, the beloved friend of Rumi, said, nothing kills the soul that commends to evil, so Nafs Salamara, like seeing the beauty of the heart. Nothing kills all these tendencies, seeing the beauty of the heart. Dissolved in that beauty, we drop all such tendencies. And then, above all, the humbleness comes. In this journey, the humbleness will come. As Al-Ghazali, a great philosopher and mystic, Sufi mystic, said, the nafs is a mountain of ego, and facing it is more difficult because it's like climbing a mountain. If you succeed in climbing the mountain of ego, arriving at its peak, you will find yourself in a valley of humility. So, dominating our low desires and ego tendencies, we find ourselves in this valley of humility. So, what seems to be the peak of human comfort is actually this humbleness, humbleness, from humus, earth, being one with the earth, in that dissolution of ego. Now we are going to speak about specific remedies related to Nafs Salamara. So we'll treat each of these tendencies that are, or these characteristics, and to see what remedies. Till now, are there any questions? If not, let's go further. Gafla, or ignorance, like avidya, ignorance, is
There's a question, Sahaja.
yes,
Can we, from Ryland Buller, can we exist in multiple nafs at once?
yes. This is what I said, that they shouldn't be seen as no exclusive, or our soul has parts. I referred in the previous satsang like a map chart map with different slides and different percentages of this nafs are part of our soul. But it's indeed that sometimes in our soul there can be this tendency. It's just a seed, a potential, but then it can grow and then it can be dissolved and so on. So that's why it's not just about that we are totally in a realm or another. Regarding ignorance or avidya, reflecting journaling, write down reactions, emotions, decisions. Over time, patterns may emerge that will show us, the causes of all this and have us give us the understanding of some patterns that are happening in our life. Also, a personal crisis or a profound experience can serve as a wake-up call. We realize that it's not just about this sleepiness. This waking up can happen sometimes in a shocking way. Also, self-reflection, just looking at ourselves and also asking, am I really happy? What is this life about? Or what is the source of my restlessness? What do I truly seek in life? Or why I'm so tired and full of struggles all the time? So trying to just contemplate, or how is my soul now? Is it fully fulfilled? Why there are so much struggles? What is about actually that sense of lack of fulfillment, from where it comes? So having the courage to confront ourselves, this is a good way of doing this. And then yoga definitely is a good element, but sometimes it is that we are not yet prepared to a spiritual path. That's why maybe therapy or counseling can be a good beginning before opening to a spiritual path. Also, in the Sufi tradition, the big therapy, the main therapy, is evoking the divine names, Asmaul Husna. Again, this shouldn't be seen as a strictly religious practice or related to Islam or something like this, but it's simply about evoking qualities, divine qualities. That means rediscovering some very profound aspects of our heart and learning to relate ourselves to these profound aspects of our heart. And the method of, so as a general procedure with the invocation of the names, because I will refer to different names in this journey. As a general procedure, first is the intention. Before saying this dhikr or this repetition, we set the intention. We put the intention, for example, if reciting An-Nur. Nur is light. You see, it's not about being afraid of God or name of God. It's light. You evoke light. Light in all its dimensions. Light which through self-inquiry, through meditation, will be revealed in so many nuances. So it's not just about me thinking, oh, what light can bring to me now. Well, light is about everything. So it's light as we imagine as a personal level. Yes, my heart or my soul becomes lighter. I feel more light in my soul. So it's a psychological release, we can say. But light is much, much more than this. So this is, we can say, a universal remedy. It's not just, of course, it's very much related to ignorance, but it's related to many of the tendencies of Nafs al-Amara, and it's related to many tendencies of any limitation. Light. Divine grace. Divine grace is light. So invoking this divine light as an absolute remedy. My limitation, my ignorance, my blind spots can be healed with this divine light, An-Nur. So I set this intention in the beginning to seek divine light, to clear any darkness of my soul. And then we are synchronizing the breathing with the recitation. In Al-Nur or An-Nur means the light. Ya-Nur, it's like the vocative. It's like oh light, Ya-Nur. You can say also in English or in your native language with that sense of not normal quality, but a divine name, O light. And during exhalation is O, during inhalation is light, or any other divine quality. So that's why maybe it will be a little bit difficult to be done while we are saying out loud, because saying some words would invoke exhalation, but mentally, if we do it mentally, it's more simple. So Ya with exhalation, Nur or light with inhalation, and then it's like you absorb that light in your heart more and more. Ya Nur, Ya Nur. Yes, I hope it's clear. Yes. And then there is also a way of counting, like we are doing with the mala, counting traditionally 33, 66 or 99 times. This is just a way of supporting this. Eventually, even in the Sufi tradition, as they say, dhikr is in reality the progressive power of the name upon the heart, while dhikr itself wears away and disappears. So when the light is in our heart and is fully there, then you don't need to say it out loud. It's just an immerse or dissolution into light. And then we keep the centeredness in the heart, trying to feel how that tremor of the heart comes and how that quality fully resonates in our being. In a way, and when you start practicing in this way, you'll realize that all these qualities are so intimately connected, and it's the same sweetness, it's the same grace, with different nuances, but it's like the world of nirvana. It's like the world of perfection there, which we are immersing or we are feeding. Yes, it's a feeding. It's a regeneration of our soul. It's also something important here, because, for example, in meditation we tend to just ask the question, who am I? For example. And then it's like repetition trying to come to that same reality. But we can see this journey as a journey in which more and more layers are taken away. And then this question, who am I, will show us glimpses of eternity or infinity or perfection of beauty more and more. So when you see meditation, every meditation, each meditation, like a work in your soul of taking away layers, that brings a certain quality. Each time when you say, all life, it's like you broke, you fed your heart. So then it's not like I did now and then again thoughts are there. I meditate, but I don't know if there are effects of this. It's like an understanding that it's a constant deepening. And then the dhikr or the prayer or the spiritual journey is like a constant feeding of the heart. More and more fulfillment comes. And you feel that. You feel in meditation, you start, and then it's more fulfillment. It's light, and then light again brings a deeper meaning. And then it's like you are introduced more and more into this intimate reality of divine light or divine purity. Because purity can have different meanings for us now. But if you meditate on purity, sattva, purity, then many revelations may appear. So, as an attitude during the practice, we focus on the divine name while trying to embody, to manifest that quality, allowing its essence to replace the trace of the ego. So it's an active work. It's an active work, and we should feel more and more release, allowing that sense to be there. It's not just a formal or passive mechanical repetition or that we need to do half an hour. Transformation. It's a secret of the heart that is happening. That's why we can see the names as powerful vibrational keys that unlock spiritual states and levels of consciousness. We may speak about these deeper stations that Sufi tradition is speaking about. And then thus we internalize the qualities that those names are evoked. So as a remedy for ignorance now, we have Al-Nur, An-Nur. There are some letters, consonants in Arabic, solar consonants, which are changing the article. Usually written, it's Al-Nur, everything is with Al, which is like the. But then for this flow in the spoken language, in some like S, N are solar such consonants, and then they change also the article, and then it's As, Sabur, or An, Nur, and so on. So it's Al Nur or An Nur. By invoking this, we seek the light, we illuminate our inner being and dispel the darkness. Al Hadi, the guide, invoking can offer guidance in a life which is led by impulsiveness, and we refer to that guide. We evoke the inner guide. Is this Satguru, the inner master, which is involved in this way. That's why Rumi said, I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. I've been knocking from the inside. So this aspiration is coming from inside, it's not about reasons, it's not about the externality, it's an inner work. And it's ineffable that the divine qualities will bring our healing and uplifting our soul from inside. Then about pride and arrogance. When it's pride and arrogance, which again can be very present even in spirituality, service and humbleness, engaging in acts of charity, and then experiencing the joy of doing this. So then we'll be introduced to this selflessness and the joy of selflessness. Then honesty with ourselves and with others. Then challenge the general worldview of people who are just lost in pride and arrogance. Always when this is happening, there should be a background of love, patience, openness, avoiding confrontations. I mean, nafs fights nafs. We see this in the world, we see between different religions, between people in different religions, between people in the same community, nafs fight nafs. But this fighting between egos will never bring a spiritual transformation. So it is with a background of compassion that this can be transformed. And then al-kahar, the subduer, as subduing these impulses, caprices of this ego, boasting ego. And then the abaser, al-muzil, is also humbling the ego, reminding it of its limited nature in the face of the divine. This is worth to somehow take notes or to see. It's not just about an interesting presentation. We will try to, I mean, it will be put on the YouTube, but then if you want specifically these divine names to work with them, this would be very helpful to refer to them and at least practically to see how it is. Regarding this pride and arrogance in the Sufi tradition, it was said, people praise you for what they suppose is in you, but you must blame your soul for what you know is in it. Not in that sense of being overly critical, but not being just taken by what others would say about you and then being just pride because wanting to show things, as we have now in spirituality so much, this even concept of spiritual influencers who put their image and then likes their spiritual meditation and so on. So it's not what others would see, but look, because you may know that there are some dark spots there. And then also, the whole self-inquiry, it's giving us a different perspective. Rumi saying, this place is a dream, only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn, and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief. It can happen, especially, for example, in self-inquiry. In self-inquiry, you go in meditation. It's like not just about having a nice meditation. You forget that you are in a meditation hall. You forget about time. You forget about anything. You are just about people around you. It's just a surrender to that essence. And then the dissolution of the ego, that comes like dawn. It's like a new life. It's a blossoming. You feel in that surrender. It's like you enter a new life. It's like you start seeing nirvana. It's like you see the other part. This really, who am I? You start just focusing on thoughts and tendency, emotions, and then in this witnessing, you realize this is like a sleep, it's like a dream. All this is like a dream. And then this vastness, this freedom, and of course, to feel joy in the heart when sorrow appears, Rumi said. It's exactly about this sublimation. Then another challenge is fear and resistance to change. How to deal with this? As I said, the ego fears change. This is it's good to remember this. Any resistance to a transformation is definitely ego coming. So the known, even harmful, is preserved because the unknown is so scary for us. And then as solutions for this resistance, gradual approach. When a friend or somebody is so afraid of a spiritual path, you can start not with 1 hour of meditation, just 5 minutes. For such a person is enough. Or create a sense of ease in new uplifting habits or tendencies that can be a good way of transforming. Patanjali also speaks about this. Then, of course, held by personal example, a personal transformation is the best testimony for others. And then those fears of the unknown will tend to dissolve slowly, and that this aspiration to a spiritual exploration will come. Rumi says in a beautiful way, be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself. Be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself. It's just this depth of meditation. Remember this, wash yourself. In the self-inquiry, any fears are brought away. Then material attachments. We can say that we live in a new age of Noah. You know, in the Bible story of Noah and the flood. And now it's also, we can say, such a flood that is happening. A flood of materialism, a flood of just superficial values, a flood of media, a flood in general of this materialistic atheism. And the waves of this flood go deep further and further, and people tend to drown. We tend to slowly drown in this new age of Noah. And as Noah wisely did, he made a boat, an ark. Apparently was no needed, and people were mocking him, but he knew. And in the same way, we learn how to protect all this from the flood of this Noah flood of materialism and ignorance and these superficial values that are happening now. So then, fasting, periods of abstinence, in different sense, digital detox, abstaining for certain luxuries, help us realize the passing nature of material pleasure and gives us a freedom, because then we don't depend on just luxury things. In our times, yes, even this is not very clear, because the patterns of this attachment to luxury, which is connected with a kind of lifestyle that is promoted. No, you are superior if you go to a luxury resort to do yoga or to have a retreat, yoga retreat only in a very fashionable way and with luxury conditions. No? So combining this can be poisonous because it gives the idea or the illusion of spirituality while is just taking just the shallow aspects of spirituality and making the same message of the capitalism, this so-called pop spirituality of our times. So you become free when you don't depend only on these nice circumstances. You can sleep in a tent or you can do things because you want to see the beauty of a mountain or because you may want to follow a retreat. Then addressing immediate dependencies, of course, then if it's an addiction, a yoga teacher and or a professional can help. Also, as name of the divine, Sabur, the patient one. So divine patience. It's not just your patience, it's divine patience, that which endures everything, which helps us to go beyond any kind of limitations. Ya Sabur, developing perseverance and resilience in the face of desires and urges. There is a beautiful Sufi story about the four donkeys. A man gave some money to his child and sent him to buy from the market 4 donkeys. So with those money, the child went and he bought a donkey. Then he bought the next donkey. So in the end, he bought 4 donkeys, as his father told him. But then it was a problem to bring them back home because each of these donkeys would go in a different direction. So he was very much confused and didn't know and struggled so much. One donkey would want to go in a direction, the other in a different direction. So he was exhausted till a sage man told him, well, ride one of them and then the others will follow. So stay on one of the donkey and then take all the others and they will follow you. And this is again like metaphor of controlling our lower desires. So if we control one of them, we will be able or we will have the capacity to control the others. And in the story, for example, these 4 donkeys are seen as being eating, sleeping, procreating, and ego defense. So this self-defense, this tendency to protect our ego, all this attachment for such lower tendencies. Then the influence of a limiting environment. Then it's about expanding and diversifying our horizons, traveling, of course, or even just reading books on spirituality or following authentic spiritual teachings online or doing pilgrimages or so. It's a way of freeing ourselves from a limiting environment. Then being part of the Sangha, people who highlight such spiritual aspirations, and then seeing that the transformation is possible and is, of course, highly beneficial. And their commitment can be deep inspiration. Then, in terms of meditating on divine names, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, love and compassion. Usually, Ar-Rahman is very close to Brahman, no? Rahman. The compassionate, the most gracious. This is the first name of the divine, and is the one which is invoked the most. I mean, Rahman and Rahim, the compassionate, most gracious, and the merciful. Sometimes it's not even given this distinction between the first one is compassion, the second one is merciful. It's rather the love. There are some Sufis who say this means just divine love, just evoking divine love, because the root Rahim in Arabic means womb. So you feel embraced, your heart becomes a womb in which all the limitations are held in that absolute perfect compassion. It's a compassion and love of a mother, even before becoming a physical mother, in that perfection of the womb. So still, sometimes Ar-Rahman is associated with an all-embracing compassion. So referring to this to this infinite, unconditional compassion, while Ar-Rahim is more of an eternal mercy and kindness and compassion for ourselves and others. So Rahim, it's about eternity, it's in eternity, that, and Rahman is about all-embracing compassion. Just nuances of the same vibration, the same tremor of the heart. Then lack of motivation, as specific remedies for when we feel a lack of spiritual motivation would be learning how to incorporate spirituality in daily life in just small amounts, or just moments of awareness during our activities, or just during walking or breathing. Take a deep breath. Taking a deep breath is not just a deep breath. Always through a deep breath, the awareness is brought in the heart. People say, take a deep breath. It's not just about the physiological effect of taking a deep breath. By taking a deep breath, your awareness goes in the heart. And then you stay for a while. Even unconsciously, people are doing this. They say, just take a deep breath, be peaceful, or calm down. It is because through that flow of the air, the awareness flows naturally in the heart. And you settle, you rest in the heart. So in this way, the spirituality starts being more accessible and more easy to be approached, like micro practices. Then engaging in spiritual group activities, like being a part of meditation classes, yoga classes, and karma yoga also is very useful. Then this group energy can be uplifting. Also in retreats and immersive experiences in which strong dose of awakening can happen, and then with practices and teachings, and then in such a dedicated environment, quantum leap can happen for that person. And again, spiritual guidance when we lack motivation, we lack aspiration as well. But all these are good remedies when we lack motivation or aspiration. Rumi has a very beautiful invitation, which should be, I would keep it on the wall as a reminder for everybody who feel a sense of limitation, and then a sense of incapacity or impotence related to a spiritual journey. Rumi said, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of living, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times. Come yet again, come, come. So it's not about a caravan of despair. It's not about lack of hope. No matter where, when we are in that trust in the divine, no matter where we can go deeper. So it's a strong remedy for skepticism as well. Since it's quite late, I would suggest to just stop now, because it will be too much if we try to go till the end, and to just have a short meditation with Yanur, with that divine name, which can be applied anytime, in any circumstance, not only related to ignorance, life, divine life. But before this, if there are any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes. So here again, there are some nuances. The question is about avoiding confrontation. And here there are, I would say, few nuances which it's worth to be emphasized. So on the one hand, there are people who, because of Nafs will tend to avoid confrontations because they just run away from, they lack that consistency, and they may make a mess, and then because just being taken by a desire or whims or moods, and then they would just leave everything. There are still people who would go in confrontations just because of their ego. A lot of wanting to confront everybody in that ego, thinking that they are always right. It's just this arrogance and self-centeredness. And in this case, we can say that the wise attitude is non-reactivity. In general, no, we speak in yoga about non-reactivity, and it's about not being identified with a point of view or another. And because of this, you are not immediately or readily or going in a confrontation. It's not about going in confrontations ultimately, when it's about different topics which are, we can say, irrelevant. I would not go in a confrontation, for example, if it's about what is going to be served as food. Should it be potatoes, or should it be rice, or should it be that or that? It's whatever you want. If you prefer this, okay, my dear. So it's not about going in and confronting just materialistic things or just ego story things. But indeed, when it's about defending spiritual values, so defending spiritual values, then you don't make compromise, and then you don't make such oh, I'm avoiding a confrontation. No, because you feel that that is related to an integrity of your being. Yes? So the fact that somebody prefers, really prefers, I don't know what kind of food, or and you may say I'm okay or whatever you want, and you don't go in a confrontation, realizing that it's just a mood of a person. This is something which, yes, it's about non-reactivity and compassion. But when some important spiritual values are threatened, all these people were, spiritual people were very, very firm in what they were doing. Sometimes in confrontation, or sometimes acting in such a way that would make very clear, may show in a very clear that that is not the way they would accept. For example, Ramana Maharshi, we have such an example of compassion and non-reactivity. And still, when, for example, the chief of the ashram wanted to address in a not beautiful way to his mother, and because she was a woman, still a woman, and that was an ashram of whatever, and Sita's there, he just said to that she has to leave, so mistreated her. Ramana simply said, let's go, mother, because if we are not wanted here, we will go. And of course, with that, the man realized, and then fell down in devotion and expressed his regret. But he was ready to leave the way he did. When, being in that cave, the owner of the area thought it was a smart idea, why not to make money? So many people would come to, so this was later in his life for Ramana, he was still living in the cave, and people started visiting, and then thought about putting a tax there. People always find smart ideas. And then Ramana initially didn't know. So when he found, so he, what to do? It was his property to argue about this. He just left. He just left. And then people, I mean, that man came and apologized and promised that he will not do anymore, and invited him, of course, to come to honor that place again. So then Ramana accepted. These are some cases, but indeed there are other cases in which sages like Ibn Arabi would confront, Sufis would confront people who would have ideas which are not in that spirit of compassion or of love. And then, yes, there were strong debates, always in supporting or sustaining the truth. Now, here is the problem, because people may say, well, but I am on the part of the truth, no? And, always in the sectarian discussions is about this. We have the truth, the absolute truth. And then, it's a tricky thing. That's why non-reactivity, equanimity, and in that, full on supporting your vision, that integrity, and manifesting no matter what, debate or acting in a way in which you wouldn't do a compromise with such spiritual values. Yes, you can make a compromise. You may wanted French potatoes, but it's rice. This is no problem. This is absolutely no problem. Or you wanted to sleep in a kind of bed and you have another bed, or you want to offer a better place to somebody else, you wouldn't debate with that person. You would offer out of love or compassion. But when it's about spiritual values, then yes, that is so rare. Any other question?
There are two questions. One is the negativity or conflict that we observe,
Can you repeat? Yes.
is the negativity or conflict that we observe in the external material existence a reflection of our individual consciousness alone, or is there a collective component to this?
Of course, there is also a collective component to this. We show that knowledge is collective. So of course, we are speaking now about this domain of individuality, or this samsara, the domain of samsara. And then, yes, it's not to be blame yourself for all the negativity in the world. You just observe and you just don't become a part of it, and more than this, you contribute in creating more light. That's why all this, let's say, exercise of self-awareness that we do by studying this Nafs is a way of acknowledgement, and then we learn stages by stages, step by step, further in this transformation of the soul. And it's like a responsibility for all of us in this, because also negativity is happening in this way, but also Sangha can echo and rally light. And there were epochs in humanity in which awakening happened in this way.
Last question. Is Nafs al-Amara typical for young souls which didn't experience too many human lives and therefore do not know about the law of karma or about compassion?
Yes, we can say this. We can say this. There is this concept of young souls and more old souls. Old souls indeed are souls who pass through many incarnations, and then inherently there is an experience in that. It's like, old person who say, well, I know this, I experienced this, no? It's somehow similar. But this doesn't necessarily mean that an old soul is free from Nafs al-Amara. Exactly as an old person, even though experienced so many things, still may be caught in the same addictions or in the same naive projections or negativities and so on. So yes, we can say a young soul, that means more, let's say, primitive, tends to be drawn by perceptions and illusions. Yeah. So let's do a short concluding meditation with evoking light. This light that takes away ignorance from our soul, from the world. Deep exhale. Relaxation. Bring the awareness in the middle of the chest, a little bit. Letting the fluid of the intention openness to life, divine life. Surrender to life. And in the intimacy of the heart, you absorb life, feeling how our heart becomes lighter and lighter, and evoking divine light. Saying with exhalation, yeah, inhalation, and exhalation, all, inhalation, light, yeah. openness to divine light, unity, eternity. All feeling, all truth. Truth. Be patient. Truth. And I want to announce as well that we'll start again the prayer. Some continue since we started that prayer to Tara. But we start again this Friday, and the prayers and the four tapas is now listed on the website. So those who want, we can send you the link to the peace and compassion.